This week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry with agriculture broadcasters Orion Samuelson and Max Armstrong, and featuring agriculture meteorologist Greg Solier. This week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH and your local Case IH dealer.
Crop development continued this past week amidst a volatile week in the commodity markets. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us here on This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson in the studio because Max has been out on the road. This past week, he had the chance to travel to Nebraska, where he talked to Mickey Gotch of Elkhorn, Nebraska, about his corn.
I think we're probably within that 10 days from now time period, somewhere around there, that this crop is really stretching out and growing fast here the last couple weeks. We've made a application with the Y drop. We may be doing some fertigation through the pivots here. So pollination should be coming up, tasseling, all that. We want to just try and keep this crop cool at night for one thing, and that's where when you have a system like we got out here, a lot of times we can do that just say with an irrigator or something. Pioneer has so much different great hybrids and varieties out here that we're using. We're all 100% Pioneer this year, so them folks have really stepped up and been out here a lot, walking fields with me. It seems like it's been very common to see their shadow alongside mine out here, which is really cool.
Nebraska farmers weren't the only ones outstanding in their field this past week. Max also went over to Illinois, and he talked with Dave Kestel of Manhattan, Illinois, about his troubles getting the crop in the ground.
We started out back in May. It wouldn't stop raining. We didn't have too many flooding rains back then. The wet holes got filled up. And there was a fellow from a Chicago news station that came out, a weatherman, and interviewed me about, geez, are you ever going to be able to get planting? And I told him back then, I said, mark my words, at some point this summer, we're going to be praying for rain. And sure enough, here we are praying for rain. We have had very little a month of June. I'd have to go back and look as far as how much rain we've had. But we've gotten little showers, and we got 3/10 last night, so the corn's not wrapped up today. But we need rain bad because we're going to go into tassel here in the next couple of weeks or less. We're going to need rain bad.
Well, thank you, Dave. I know a lot of growers this year have dealt with that rain on, rain off situation. Certainly creates additional stress for a farm operation. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. The Firestone Ag Dealer Network offers you the support, inventory, and resources you need. Visit firestoneag.com to find your local certified dealer. And we're talking markets. It was a volatile week in the commodities trade, and Dwayne Bossy of Bolt Marketing in South Dakota joins us here. Dwayne, the dollar touched a 20-year high this week. What happened?
I wish I could say it's because the U.S. economy is just stellar and performing strong, but it's not. It's more or less it's a safe haven player right now for a lot of fund investors that don't like the stock market, don't really like commodities, a little bit worried about recession. So they're floating more money back into the U.S. dollar. And like you said, making a decade high here is a little negative when it comes to our export demand, of course.
And Dwayne, that I think is an important point. Why is a rising dollar negative to export demand?
Right, exactly. When other countries go to look to buy our grain, especially like the wheat market, they'll have to do a currency conversion basically. So as our dollar goes up, like right now it's going up and the euro is going down sharply. So if someone there would want to buy some of our wheat, it's going to cost even more than what just the futures market shows because of that conversion. So, I mentioned the wheat market because it seems to affect our wheat market first.
All right, so we've got that big money flow issue happening in the markets. And then, Dwayne, we also have fundamental factors going on in the grain markets in particular. This week saw a lot of volatility. Is the trade starting to focus on summer weather?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, weather's been kind of key here for a while. And really, when we came back from after the 4th of July holiday, we had a better forecast than we anticipated as far as crop development, I should say better. A lot more rain from the northern plains where I'm at down through Chicago. Kind of had a nasty storm roll through last week as well. But turns out not a whole lot of damage, but a whole lot of beneficial rain coming through. So yeah, it was kind of a bearish market there when it comes to the weather standpoint. But of course, we're always looking at the extended forecast, right? And it's looking a little bit drier for the eastern corn belt, but it's also looking cooler. So it might be actually near ideal during pollination.
All right, Dwayne, with that being said, for the corn that's growing in the field, if growers got rains over this past weekend, are you still a marketer in here at these prices, or do you want it to rebound some?
No, as far as hedgers, I think I would still be selling. Now, the market got very oversold and formed a temporary bottom at least, but I think we're developing a downward trend here now. And really, when you think about it, these prices are still very elevated and very good. Now, because of the high input costs, it's not huge profits like you would think $5 corn is, but that'll depend on our yield at the end of the year, right? But I'm really concerned about this recession talk and the fact that the funds are still holding long positions. If they want to liquidate out of all those positions, we got more downside coming.
Dwayne, have they done a lot of liquidation in the wheat market, in particular in Chicago wheat?
Yeah, actually, when it comes to the wheat market, we think they're actually short the market now. So, and when you look at this whole commodity rally, it started with wheat and veg oils, right? And wheat has been the first one to really tank and go sharply lower. I'm watching the wheat complex to see if that doesn't form a bottom first to tell me when corn and soybeans will be coming close to forming their bottom as well. And you know, hopefully we're seeing that now that the funds aren't long any wheat contracts at all, but they're not seeing anything good in the wheat market right now. But I give it a little bit of time. In the last week, couple weeks, we've seen some of the major buyers out there in the world start to step up and actually buy wheat. Egypt was in buying a lot of wheat again, so they feel like there's value coming.
All right. Well, we'll pick that up for more discussion here with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing when This Week in Agribusiness returns. This portion of This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Harvey Firestone invented the first pneumatic farm tire, forever changing what it means to farm hard. Visit firestoneag.com to learn more about this history and tire solutions for today. We're back talking market movements with Dwayne Bussey of Bolt Marketing. And Dwayne, soybeans also in focus this week. A lot of volatility there. Do you expect export demand to come back to the U.S. here yet this summer?
I'm afraid not. Actually, there's been rumors the past week and a half about China canceling some of their old crop purchases from us, which would make sense and really isn't that bearish because our export demand has been so stellar. We're above the pace needed to meet USDA goals. So them canceling a few, it'll be negative for the market, but probably a buy the rumor, sell the fact. I think we've already priced that in. Soybeans are probably more key to this recession talk right now. They follow money flow a lot, and I'm worried that's going to keep some pressure on the soybean market. So I think pops are meant to be sold for producers right now.
All right, Dwayne, you mentioned money flow, and one of the factors that changes that money flow are government reports. Next week, next Tuesday, World Agricultural Supply and Demand estimates coming out from USDA. Corn, beans, and wheat. Are you anticipating any surprises in any of those areas?
It shouldn't really be a surprise because, you know, we'll plug in the June 30th acreage report in there. And the biggest surprise from that was the lower soybean acres. But that won't be a surprise, of course. We know that number. It'll be monitored to see how much that ending stock will shrink on soybeans. I've got it around 250 to 270 million bushels, which is fairly tight. And you wouldn't think we'd have a washout like we've seen in the bean market. But we're coming from such elevated prices. And we just mentioned the money flow leaving commodities. I think that's a bigger driver of it. But I don't look for a bullish surprise in these reports. I'm actually worried they're going to be a little bit bearish. You know, these rains have been a good thing lately. I'm not saying we're going to pull the yields up yet, but I'm trending that way to the national yields for corn and soybeans to actually be higher, and wheat as well.
All right, Dwayne, ethanol demand, do you see that staying strong as we get through this summer?
Yeah, it has been, and you see it in the basis first off, right? A very strong basis, but on that June 30th stocks report, we found out that farmers are holding a little bit more of that corn than anticipated. So wouldn't be shocked to see that basis go away pretty soon. If I was a holder of old crop corn, I'd be dumping it hard and fast because I'm just worried we're going to see that strong demand continue on a nice positive basis until they get right to that point where they think they've got enough booked to get to new crop, and then that basis, I'm afraid, will fall apart.
Dwayne, cattle feeders had the opportunity this week to buy corn at a discount. Where do you see the cattle market going from here, live cattle in particular?
You know, it sounds odd, but I got this funny feeling that this cattle market is going to be strong as we head in and into this recession we've all talked about a lot, which is kind of the opposite. You would think usually enter a recession, we're not going to move as much product. But that market seems strong, and it partly because we're finally looking at that inventory finally drop. And we've been talking about the herd reduction for years, it feels like. And I don't know if it's going to be as sharp as some of the bulls anticipate, but I do think that herd does get smaller. And I think our cattle on feed reports get a little bit more bullish moving forward. So I think that market can continue to inch higher, at least show some pretty good support, even though box beef usually trends lower as you get to the second half of summer.
Yeah, Dwayne, with that being said, as you get into this fall, do you see that cattle strength continuing on into, well, up through harvest or Christmas time?
I do. I mean, it's a big question. That the problem is we have such a premium in the back deferred contracts already. So the futures market is already anticipating what we're talking about right now. So I'm just kind of hoping we can at least hold those levels. You know, if we can get fats in the 150s and higher, I feel pretty darn good about it. And I'm afraid we're going to need that because this cash feeder market is kind of on fire already. So hey, we're going to need those higher prices.
All right, we certainly will. Dwayne Bussey, Bolt Marketing, appreciate you joining us here on This Week in Agribusiness.
Chad Colby's look at agriculture technology comes your way next, brought to you by the IBM Watson Decision Platform, combining AI with Internet of Things data to help agribusiness increase yields, improve quality, and drive sustainability.
Well, it's midsummer, the sun is out, the farm chores are taking a little break, and a lot of growers are finding this to be an opportunity to get out to a farm show. Chad Colby loves getting to farm shows to see what's on display. And Chad, what are you watching for this week?
Thanks, Mike. Well, it's July, it's farm show season, and you never know who you're going to run into at a farm show. Or wait a minute, yes you do, it's Max Armstrong.
There's a possibility, Chad, when you go to an antique farm equipment show, I might be there. I love to go to places such as this one. This show at Penfield, Illinois, held this week. You hear us talking about it quite a bit, but it allows me to remind other folks of the tremendous advances we've made over the years. We recall how we used to spend months putting in a crop, caring for the crop through cultivation and spraying and then harvesting it. And of course now we perform those operations in just a few days when the weatherman permits that.
You know, Max, when it's July and we've got some farm shows to go to, you and I, our attention kind of turns right to the Farm Progress Show. And I talked to Matt this week, the show coordinator, the boss, if you would, and things look exceptional. We've even got some improvements with the grounds this year that I think you're all going to like.
Yeah, it'll be nice to be back at Boone. We haven't had a live show there in 4 years, of course. We had the virtual show there 2 years ago, but they've made improvements, including in the flow of traffic, I believe, coming into the show site.
Yeah, that's really a big improvement. And also the various industry tent, it's got pavement this year. That's a big deal because we want to make these show sites so you can get in them even if there's some weather and some rain recently, but that's exciting.
You know, so often when we talk about the Farm Progress Show, we zero in on the big equipment and the technology in the cab, but many people do enjoy the varied industries area. They get things that they're going to need back home. Many folks will make a list before they go to the show, and you can do that on the site. You can go to the website, farmprogressshow.com, and map your visit there to know everything you want to see.
I did ask Matt about vendors. He said, we've got a lot. He keeps getting a lot of calls. The varied industry tent, in fact, is nearly full, which is great. But the big news is, too, is the crops look amazing. Yeah. There's been really good weather in Iowa, actually in Nebraska as well for that show coming up as well. So that's a big deal as long as the winds stay away, right. The inclement weather. But as far as how they look today, they look really good.
And not just harvesting in the field that'll be taking place, but tillage and tiling demonstrations as well. So there'll be a lot to see there. We'll count on seeing you there. It's August 30th and 31st and September 1st.
That's right. And trust me when I tell you, we'd love to give you more details. There's going to be some major announcements for equipment. That's all we can say. Yeah. And like every other Farm Progress show, it's the showcase to bring out that equipment to the first time, and it's the first place you get to see it, Max.
Right. Another Lee Bryce concert this year, too. That'll be the end of the day on Wednesday, the 31st.
That's right. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys there as well.
Fertilizer, crop nutrition are hot topics, and joining me today to discuss them is Hugh McGillivray. He's the Chief Commercial Officer at Anuvia. Hugh, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's talk first about Anuvia. What can you tell me about the company?
Yeah, Anuvia, we're a new company. We began in 2015. We have a patented technology that takes organic feedstocks, so think of things like manures, food waste, byproducts of the ag industry potentially, wastewater treatment plant organics. We break it down to the amino acid level, and then we bind inorganic nutrients to it, and we create a slow release nutrient product that feeds the crop more efficiently, feeds the soil by returning organic matter to the soil, and it has a smaller environmental footprint in the form of we lose less nutrients into the groundwater and into the environment, and we reduce the carbon footprint of fertilizer in the industry.
And that product that you have created at Anuvia is Simtrix, is that right?
Yeah, we've branded it as Simtrix. We have two types of Simtrix. We have a Simtrix 20S, which is a 171020 formula, and then we have a Simtrix 10S, which is a 142410. That product is being also marketed by Mosaic under the brand Sustera.
Now, I understand there is a new generation of Simtrix, Simtrix XP. What makes it different?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. Simtrix XP is really kind of evolving what we do with fertilizer. It's really changing the paradigm of how we feed the crop. We've partnered with Novozymes, which is a world leader in the area of microbial technologies and enzyme technologies. And we're going to add those together. We're going to take our Simtrix and we're going to take the Novozymes technologies, advanced microbials. We're going to combine them and we're going to deliver nutrients in a different way. We're going to provide nutrients through Simtrix, but then with the microbials, we're going to either make them more available in the soil through the microbial activity, or we're actually going to pull them out of the atmosphere with technologies that will actually fix nitrogen.
As you look down the line, do you continue to expect this combination of traditional fertilizer sources, traditional crop nutrients, and microorganisms?
I think it's the next generation of fertilizer. We are going to see huge innovation, I think, in the area of fertilizer. I think these are important technologies. They're going to improve efficiency from a nutrient use. If you think about nutrition, there's not been a lot of change over the last 50 years in terms of how we do it. And we're seeing a lot of investment taking place in this space. And we have a unique product in the form of Simtrix, where it's a bio-based nutrient product. It provides a very interesting vehicle delivery mechanism for these microbial technologies that will provide nutrition to the plant differently. So we're going to change the paradigm of how we do fertilizer, ultimately.
Well, Hugh, the timing certainly seems right. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Folks, we've been talking with Hugh McGillivray, Chief Commercial Officer at Anuvia. Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Several weeks ago, the Dutch government released a proposal vowing to cut emissions from agriculture substantially by 2030. Their chief targets are nitrous oxide and ammonia. They want to reduce those emissions by 30% here in the next 6 years. Dutch farmers are frustrated by this, and they've spent the past several weeks protesting. They've closed down highways, they've barricaded food distribution centers and grocery stores, and now the Dutch government appears to be willing to listen, and they are going to set up a mediator to discuss the terms of this reduction in emissions between the farmers and the government. But some European farmers have left the continent entirely and have taken a trip to the United States. Max had a chance to catch up with a few.
Well, Mike, there's a possibility over the next week some of our farmer friends somewhere in the United States will see these two traveling farmers from Belgium. Heinrich Kirchhoffs and Anita Hassan joining us here near Chicago. You like the United States, don't you?
Yes, we fell in love with the States on our honeymoon in 1995. Yes.
And how many times have you been in the U.S., Anita?
I guess 17 times
Yeah,
now.
something
Yes.
like that.
And you always stop and visit with farmers.
Yes, every year. Yes.
Since we met Darius Harms in Penfield, Illinois, we come back every year and to visit the area and the tractor show, of course.
But you travel all over the United States. You've met farmers in Texas and the Palouse area of Washington. Tell us about your travels and some of the folks you've met.
Well, we've been all over. We've been done around 40 states, I guess. We've been the rest we've done already every state, like the Palouse area, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, everything.
Anita, what is it you like about the United States? You guys are so passionate about it and you come back often.
Driving around through rural areas. Yes.
And you're not afraid to meet people either, are you?
No. I'm not.
When you walk up to them, you learn a lot about agriculture. And I know you already had great background on ag, but people enjoy watching you, Heinrich, as you build stuff in your shop in Belgium.
Well, it's quite different from here. Everything is small at home. The farms are small, the fields are small. Even our roads, I only can have equipment of 10 feet wide. Otherwise, I won't get to the fields.
So it's rather intensive farming.
Yeah, it's very intensive. And the space you got over here is unbelievable. To us, it looks like farming heaven over here.
But your equipment is modern.
Yes, I try to keep it up, yes.
What's been interesting to watch is the building of equipment you do, the things that you craft for your own farm, tillage equipment, for example.
Yes, I even cut up new equipment to adapt it to how I want it to be, yes, because I can't find it.
You make what you need. There are some real challenges in European agriculture. We've been seeing protests, tractors lined up, blocking highways. What's going on?
Well, Europe has said that no end deposition of the farms can get to the nature. So they want to close farms around the nature and even cut livestock completely by 65%. And those farms close to nature, they have to close down. They are bought and you can't use any nitrogen anymore around these areas.
So much of the concern centers around the use of fertilizer or animal waste coming into the waterways.
It's more the nitrogen that gets into the air and gets deposited on the nature. But with two big harbors in the area, with a lot of traffic and national airports, much of the nitrogen comes also from the other part. But I am afraid they're going to sacrifice the agriculture to save the other part.
Farmers clearly have been sounding off about it and very actively blocking traffic, blocking the cities.
Yes, even yesterday a boy who was driving a tractor of 16-year-old, he was shot at by a policeman. And at the moment they are trying to, he has been arrested, and farmers are trying to rescue him from jail even.
So emotions have been very high.
Yes, it's getting dangerous, very dangerous. But I don't think the politicians understand the connection of a farmer between his land and his farm. And that's the big difference with a politician, I guess.
There seems to be that concern among some in the United States, too, as maybe you've sensed. You bring your own photographer with you. This woman takes pictures all the time.
Yes, I do.
But
I try to.
I don't like to be in them.
Well, she gets plenty of landscape, that's for sure. Hey, we hope you continue to have great travels in the U.S. and that you can continue to farm unfettered in Belgium.
Thank you. Of course.
It's great to have.
We'll be back.
We brag about having friends in Belgium because of you two. Did you know that, Anita?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, we talk about you a lot. Oh, hey, Heinrich Kirchhoff's Anita Hassen from Belgium. You may see them in your farming area over the next few days as they travel across the United States. Mike, they're great people. Well, for the most part.
Thank you, Max. That is fantastic. I do enjoy following Henrik and Anita on social media. Their Twitter and Facebook feeds are a great way to learn about what is happening in European agriculture and in Belgian construction, which is Henrik's other job. Folks, stick around. We're going to have more this week in agribusiness coming up, including a look at technology that's developing in agriculture. Max has a new show about that. We'll talk about it when we return.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Thanks for joining us here, folks, for This Week in Agribusiness. On Monday, July 11th on RFD TV, a new television series is beginning. It's a series that is going to be taking a close look at technology in agriculture, and it's being hosted by our very own Max Armstrong. He's on set over there. Max, tell us, what is this show about?
Mike, it is about the future, the not too distant future in agriculture by all means. The innovators, the entrepreneurs, those folks who are developing new products and services for farmers. Farm Next is a series you'll want to be watching for, available on RFD TV, all of the websites of farm progress companies in the run-up to the 2022 Farm Progress Show in just a few weeks. Visiting here with us from Pivot Bio is Tracy Willits, Vice President of Communications. Tracy, give us a little overview of what Farm Next is.
Farm Next is a program that brings new ideas and innovation to light. There are so many amazing inventors and ideas in agriculture today to propel it into the next decade that we wanted to highlight those special inventors and their ideas for farmers.
These things are coming quickly, the advances, the technology, the techniques, and really they're not just pie in the sky. I mean, some of these are near development, total development, correct?
That's right. There are several ideas that are very close to commercialization or being available to farmers to use on their operations, and some are further back. They're thinking through maybe their next series of financing, or looking for partners, or thinking about how to market their ideas and their products for farmer productivity. Safety is one area that they're looking at, and of course, data and technology.
In each of the half dozen episodes that Farm Next will be doing, there's a panel of experts, including a farmer, who will really quiz these guests on Farm Next about their product and just kind of bore down on what it's all about and maybe offer them some advice, correct?
That's right. These innovators are looking for advice to help them clear a path to take their product and get it into the hands of farmers. And as an employee at a startup, as we're growing and getting bigger, we know that it takes a lot of partners along the way to be successful, not unlike farming. And we hope to give those innovators and inventors the best advice possible so they can be successful.
Am I correct that coming up at the end of August at the Farm Progress Show at Boone, there'll be a special Pivot Bio display for Farm Next? Is that right?
That's right. We're looking forward to highlighting these new inventions and ideas in front of farmers that come to Farm Progress Show. We are so thrilled to be able to sponsor them and talk about what they're doing and get the whole world excited about what's next.
Tracy, it is exciting, as a matter of fact. Thank you for visiting with us about Farm Next. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you at the Farm Progress Show not too many weeks from now.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Max.
Tracy Willits, Vice President of Communications for Pivot Bio, helping bring that Farm Next series. In the week ahead, RFD TV is where it can be seen, and also on the websites of Farm Progress.
Thanks, Max. And folks, don't miss it Monday, July 11th at 7 p.m. Central Time on RFD TV. That's Farm Next.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, it's time to talk weather here on This Week in Agribusiness, which means it's time to turn to our trusted ag meteorologist, Greg Solier. Greg, let's look out at the West Coast. That drought is still in place across much of that territory.
Yep.
What's coming in this next week? Any relief for folks out west?
That hot ridge, which has dominated much of the heartland, the plains, the Corn Belt, is retrograding. Fancy term. Yeah, weather could actually back up, move westward, especially from an up air perspective and standpoint, and we'll see just that. So you get under that hot ridge. On its underside, backside, you get the tropical moisture, the monsoon set up. On its front side, top side, the air sinks, it compresses, and you just bake away. And some of that stuff that's been in the plains is taking aim at this part of the country and points on southward as the week wears on. Still a bit of a southwest to northeast upper flow, but an absence of any organized moisture per usual. Drought improvement here over the past couple of months. Not so through Oregon, Northern California, much of the west. Some improvement through Big Sky country. And you go along the Missouri and westward, we have seen, at least westward, not seen any significant improvement to the drought we have in areas off to the north and east. But note the absence outside of a stray shower thunderstorm, the northern end of the monsoon setup, little if any organized moisture going on in the Pacific Northwest. And if anything, that ridge kind of broadens and expands northward, a bit of an onshore flow, a stray shower to Washington State, maybe a thunderstorm western Canadian prairie, and the heat builds to the Black Hills and points on southward. We might bubble up a thunderstorm there, but be ready for some of these readings over the high plains areas of 95 to 100, back into that 105-degree category. Had that plenty of it across the central and southern plains last week, and even sections of the southeastern states. And again, a bit of a southwest to northeast upper air flow through northern California. The usual monsoon, at least the marine layer air here. The monsoon setup under the hot ridge as winds come around out of the Gulf and off the Pacific. So we will bubble up a couple of thunderstorms along with the humidity. Yeah, you feel it this time of the year in the desert Southwest. Nothing going on in the western and southern areas of the high plains of Kansas, Colorado, and in through Oklahoma and Texas. And the heat is back into play as well as the hot ridge expands on northward, north of the Four Corners out towards Salt Lake City. Maybe a thunderstorm on its front side. And low-level moisture, daytime heating, the monsoon set up here. Otherwise, we just bake away with just horrible crop conditions, Mike, through Texas and parts of Oklahoma as the drought continues on there.
Well, folks in the central part of the country might be glad to hear about that heat ridge retrograding. Greg, how far do these cool temps spread out over the central part of the U.S.?
It'll be a series of cold fronts on the move. They will not be the moisture makers that we've seen over the past week to 10 days over the Corn Belt, but nonetheless, it is into play. The chance for a shower thunderstorm on one boundary here. The heat tries to work back on up, but note the cold front here with cooler air, drier air across the Dakotas. Again, we may trigger a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms with these fronts on the move, but it is a delightful go of it with outdoor work across the northern plains, much of the Corn Belt, a stray shower to the Ohio Valley. At least a drop off in temperatures as well will ease moisture requirements. Yes, abnormally dry in a wide area here, even some localized severe drought into parts of east central Illinois. We know what's going on through the high plains areas, at least temperatures there west of the Missouri. They're going to get hot again and out through the high plains, but not quite the horrid pace that we had last week. A little easterly wave. It's a little tropical disturbance, nothing named, but it'll bring some rainfall to South Texas. Here is the heat through New Mexico, the western and central high plains, maybe a thunderstorm on this northwest to southeast upper air pattern. Humid for the time of year in the southwest, as you would expect in the monsoon setup, and through the Rio Grande into parts of the southwest, a couple of showers and thunderstorms, triple digit here. Southern plains, the drought worsens, and the heat as well back into the Ohio Valley with maybe a triggering shower thunderstorm system into parts of the Ozarks and points on southward.
Greg, those cold fronts moving through the central part of the country, they're going to make their way all the way to the east coast?
They will, and it's a pretty sizable up air trough, meaning there's some cooling up aloft, and you put some of that July sun on it, and just that process alone may serve up a stray shower thunderstorm, but not the organization that we had of rainfall over the Corn Belt last week. Here is that cold front on the move, and it will trigger again as the week wears on. A couple of showers and thunderstorms. The heat splits off here, back into areas west of the Missouri. Cooler, drier air and an instability shower into the Great Lakes region. Fine weather for outdoor work and play and sleeping as well. Throw open those windows. Here's this little tropical wave moving through southern Texas. The heat over the southeast has been horrible. Terrible crop conditions. Showers and thunderstorms all are back into play as the heat eases, the humidity rises, and a couple of boundaries into play. Afternoon showers and thunderstorms likely over much of the southeast.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot BioProven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot BioProven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, we're talking weather, and Greg, in your last forecast, you mentioned the opportunity for some rainfall this next week. Who's going to get it and when?
Looks like over the southeastern part of the country. Later in the week, we may work enough tropical moisture in under that hot ridge that we may spark a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms. This might be a little bit optimistic, but there's some rainfall prospects and possibilities late in the week into sections of Oklahoma and Texas. Apart from that, hopefully you got something in your gauge across the Corn Belt over the past 10 days to 2 weeks, because this is all we're going to serve up. Quarter-inch amounts and scattered coverage downwind to the Great Lakes region, maybe fair into the northeast New England. This is good news. Those crops have really been hit. Reproductive corn, soybeans, 95 to 105 degree heat last week. Not what you'd like to see. And there is a lot of dryness and drought in this part of the country as well. The monsoon setup here generates a couple of downpours over the southwestern part of the country. Widely scattered, quarter to half inch in the Pacific Northwest. But Mike, basically a drier week ahead for much of the Corn Belt locales and an easing of temperatures as well.
Greg, looking out to the future, we get to mid-July, the week of July 18th. Of course, we're going to have a lot of corn in pollination across the country, a lot of concerns about dryness.
Right.
Are the temps going to be cool?
I think they'll be cooperative, and probably a bit below average in some areas. And this is relatively good news here. So moisture requirements ease. The crops can ease up. If they continue to percolate in that heat at night, they struggle along with the development as well. So this is relatively good news here. There's a pretty good swath of cool air up near the Canadian border and northward, St. Lawrence River Valley and Hudson Bay, James Bay. Here is the hot ridge over the southwestern part of the country. Problem is, in this particular northwest to southeast setup, it's generally a drier setup, and there's no real mechanisms or Gulf moisture to work with. It's trapped here, good news. Southern Plains, good news. Into the west and southwest with the monsoon setup, but it is a drier weather picture in those northern and eastern Corn Belt locales. So that's the trade-off. Easing of temperatures, but not much moisture expected as we move on through the middle part of the month of July.
All right, Greg, well, let's get to the end of the month. In that final week of July, what sort of risks do you think are developing for the crops out there in the field? Is it temp? Is it dryness still at play?
Probably both. I don't see this being terribly long lasting. And again, this is fairly good news. The hot ridge is collapsed. It's going to basically hold itself into parts of the southern plains, the southwestern sections of the country, kind of get fragmented off. And a little easing of temperatures along the Gulf Coast. We are getting into the time of year, and we do anticipate a busy tropical season in the Gulf and the Atlantic as well. But yeah, below average to normal across much of the Corn Belt locales, mid-Atlantic region, into parts of the northwestern sections of the country. Moisture-wise, a little bit of better news. We would like to see it more here into the central Corn Belt. These may be some of these storm clusters that came on through, like last week, that derecho that came out of South Dakota. This might be the setup here, downwind of the Great Lakes region. Good news over the southeast, parts of the south end of the winter wheat belt, southwestern states with above average moisture, normal if you will, and it's not much to speak of through California and the Pacific Northwest here in the waning days of July.
Well, Greg, as I watch your maps and charts, and I think we're heading into that crucial pollination stage, it doesn't appear like there is a huge drought developing on the horizon. As we get into that first week in August, what do you see developing?
I think it's the short-term dryness, and even normal precip gets you, quarter to half inch into the summertime season for the month of July and early August over the Corn Belt locales. We do have some heat back into play, but it's a fast west-to-east flow, a little bubble up aloft here over the northern plains, so heating up here, back into somewhat above average for much of the Corn Belt. Clouds and moisture, Gulf Coast in through Texas and the southwestern sections of the country, a bit below for the northeast to New England, normal into the Pacific Northwest. Things do improve moisture-wise as we get into the month of August, but remember, you marry up these weather systems with the jet stream like we saw last week. It is easy to set up these derechos, and we'll have to keep an eye on thunderstorm activity, but it is moisture nonetheless. For the northern plains, the Great Lakes region down to the southeastern part of the country, you get the storms this time of the year. Usually it's lodging and blowdown, hail and high wind you have to watch out for. Here are the tropics getting a little busy in through Florida, the Gulf Coast. Good news here for the mid-Atlantic region, moisture-wise, down through Texas as well. And the monsoon setup continues on over the southwestern sections of the country. And precipitation rainfall should be about normal out in the Pacific Northwest.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
At Max's Tractor Shed this weekend, no, it's not just a red tractor. It's one that's red, white, and blue. We saw a lot of flags the other day. I'll talk about it in Max's Tractor Shed. Brought to you by Store Lock Tool Cabinets. They have what you need. They have the colors and a great variety. They have varying sizes. You can dress up your shop with a Store Lock Tool Cabinet. Go to their website to get all of the information at storelock.com. We did notice all of the American flags in the past week at fairs and festivals and parades with tractors. But Aaron Heinman at Oakland City, Indiana, doesn't need to fly the flag. He has a Stars and Stripes J.I. Case tractor from 1976. Take a look at this tractor. It's a J.I. Case 1570. And some of you may remember back in 1976, the bicentennial year, they were coloring everything red, white, and blue. Railroad locomotives were red, white, and blue. Semi-tractor trucks were red, white, and blue. And yes, J.I. Case painted some tractors. Maybe 200 of those. Probably no more than 250, I am told, of the 1570s came out in red, white, and blue. Aaron is the third owner of this tractor, bought new by Walter Lee Rumble. At Oakland City, he bought it at Mundy's Equipment Company in Ireland, Indiana, back in that big bicentennial year of 1976. Well, let's find out what's selling in the week ahead. But the folks at Big Iron Auctions, Mark Stock joins us now as he does each week.
Hi Max, well Big Iron is hosting some featured auctions built around the Farm Progress Farm Show in Boone, Iowa, and around the Husker Harvest Days event in Grand Island, Nebraska. So if you've got items that you would like to sell during those farm shows and take advantage of the huge attendance that those shows produce, please get a hold of your area rep or call us as soon as possible. Now Max, selling this upcoming week on BigIron.com, we've got a wide variety of outstanding items like a Case 4890 four-wheel drive tractor selling in Anton, Colorado. There's a Case International Patriot 4430 self-propelled sprayer selling in Lyons, Kansas. And we've got a John Deere 9570 STS combine selling in Talmadge, Nebraska. We have a retirement sale for Marvin Brown in Washita, Iowa, featuring a 2002 Case IH MX 240 tractor. Dwight Linskoff is retiring by Imperial, Nebraska. He has a Caterpillar TH460B 4x4x4 telehandler. The Dennis Drosty Estate in Waverly, Iowa features a Gale 4835 skid steer. And CK Feedlot, they're retiring by Hartington, Nebraska. They've got a New Holland FX50 self-propelled forage harvester plus a 1999 Kenworth W900 semi-truck tractor. Outstanding equipment selling to the highest bidder July the 13th.
Each year, FFA trains a new crop of students in leadership skills to help guide our ag industry, and we like getting to know them here on This Week in Agribusiness. This week, we're meeting Faith Galovich. She is the past state sentinel for the Ohio State FFA. Faith, thanks so much for joining us here this week.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Looking back on your year of service, Faith, what were some of the highlights of the 2021-2022 school year for you?
Some of the highlights of my year of service was getting to meet members from across the state and hear their stories about their impact in FFA and outside of the organization.
Did you have a chance to work at convention this past year?
Yes, we just held our 94th Ohio FFA convention, and I was able to be on stage and backstage. It was nice to finally be back at convention in person after 3 years of being online.
Was the energy level just hard to describe in a room like that? 3 years of pent-up energy from FFAers?
It was for sure. My parents were able to attend, and they said it was just amazing to see all the energy and the kids being so excited to be there.
That is fantastic. Faith, what was it, if you'd think back, what was it that prompted you to join FFA?
What prompted me to join was my sister. We never had a farm or were involved in agriculture, and then my sister is 5 years older than me, Sarah, and she joined ag as a freshman, and I really saw her grow and develop as a person, and I knew that was something I wanted to be a part of. And so eventually along the way, we created our cattle and goat farm, and I joined, and here we are today.
That is fantastic, Faith. And your cattle and goat farm, that helped you perform your CDEs throughout high school, didn't it?
Yeah, it helped me with my essay to earn my degree so that I can be here today. And I did CDs that involved in it.
That is fantastic, Faith. And you are currently at The Ohio State University. Do you hope to have a career in agriculture?
Yes, I hope to return back to the high school classroom and be an agri-science educator and also an FFA advisor.
Fantastic. Pay it forward and lend it on to the next generation. Is that right?
That's definitely it, for sure. My teacher made a major impact in my life, and I want to give that back to future generations.
Well, Faith, we wish you the best of luck in your future. Thanks for joining us here on This Week in Agribusiness. Well, folks, thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. And of course, as summer gets deeper underway, we find a lot of times in rural America that we can get together, parades and county fairs and a lot of events where we see agricultural royalty, the kings and queens of different ag sectors. Al Gustin had the chance recently to get to know Miss Ag USA.
My platform is farm safety.
Every queen needs a platform. And if your title is Miss Agriculture USA, then farm safety is a good choice. Macy Worry received the title at a competition in Ohio this summer, competing against 8 other state winners in a variety of categories. Her FFA background helped.
So we had to do impromptu questions, speeches, formal wear, ag wear.
Which, she says, was her favorite part because she got to wear a sunflower dress and honeybee jewelry, appropriate for the North Dakota representative. Although raised in a rural community, Macy considers herself a fourth-generation cattle rancher and farmer. Growing up, she spent countless hours here on the Wary Gelby Ranch, where her father was raised and her grandmother still lives. Back to her platform, farm safety.
In the past year, I've been going into schools and talking to kids about the different things that can happen on a farm, the different accidents that can happen.
For Macy, it's personal.
When I was 10 years old, my brother Michael passed away in a farming accident. He was spraying in a field and ended up being electrocuted by a power line. I told my parents that if I can save one person's life, I've done my job.
Although still in college, Macy's job is now to be a spokesperson for agriculture.
As a national queen, we have to do at least 24 social media posts in a year. So that means 24 outings, 24 somethings.
The Miss United States Agriculture program was started in 2014 to encourage women in agriculture to teach and enhance the American agriculture story. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Al Gustin.
Well, thank you, Al and Macy. We wish you the best of luck in getting the story out there to make America's farms and ranches safer for that next generation. And folks, thanks to you for joining us on This Week in Agribusiness. We'll be back next weekend with more stories covering the importance of agriculture in this country. Join us then, same place, same time, right here for This Week in Agribusiness.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Kubota. Shape your world. This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communications in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.